I am here with Lucy Biggers. I think this is going to be a fun podcast. You're not a reporter for the Free Press, but you wrote an article for the Free Press that I saw. You do social media stuff for the Free Press, basically. And you wrote this article called "I Helped AOC Win." I understand the fantasy Zohran is selling. I never thought, like when I started this podcast like 6 years ago, I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to have anybody connected in any way to AOC on this podcast. Like if somebody would have said, would you have somebody on your podcast who helped AOC win? I'd be like, no, I would never. Now I'm talking to somebody who actually helped AOC win. And I thought this was a fascinating story and very interesting because I think it sort of encapsulates a lot of what's happening in the younger generations in the United States, how they're interacting with politics. And I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. New York is sort of moving even more and more progressive as we speak. There's been a lot of new developments in what's happening in the mayor's race. And so they've rejected the sort of old school Democrat, Cuomo. They're like, we don't want that. We want socialism. We want city run grocery stores. And so you helped get AOC elected. We're going to get there. But I just want to start, I guess, by going even further back and just hearing about your upbringing a little bit. Like you were more liberal socialist, and then we can get into your AOC and then what happened after AOC and where you're at now. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for having me on. And I love your setup.
Thanks.
It looks very Midwest. I have to come out there. I'm just in an office, like neutral, like pod. So New York. Okay. Yeah. So I'm Lucy. I am 35. I have 2 kids. I live in Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. My parents growing up, they were like Reagan Republicans. I think a lot of people in my area were growing up sort of just conservative, waspy upbringing. Episcopalian sort of culturally, but not really like foundationally. And I think that's kind of a really big piece of it where I wasn't inoculated against some of these ideas. Socialism really preys on the empathy of well-meaning young people. And now that I'm sharing my story and people ask me to reflect on my background, I'm sort of thinking about how did I go to this place? And I think it was because I was a well-meaning young person. I was actually like in the Young Republicans Club in high school.
Wow.
And then went to college, and Obama was elected when I was a freshman in college. And I became a huge Obama person. I had an Obama poster on my wall in college, my college dorm, because I was so taken with his oration and his charm. And like many people in my generation, we were all big Obama people. So I think that was the beginning for me of becoming a Democrat. Especially, you have to remember at that time, we're coming off of the George Bush years. There's a recession. There's the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, like the Republicans were at an all-time low. They're sort of like what the Democrats are now. So my whole generation became Obama Dems mostly. I would not say whole, that's maybe, but the majority. So that was just a normal thing that people were. We wanted more affordable healthcare, less inequality, all of that. Then I graduated from college in 2012, and I'm a little bit before I feel like the woke stuff really came into college, because I think that was 2015. It sort of really started getting, becoming mainstream with, there were the first round of BLM protests in 2015. In 2012, we were not woke. We were just young people. We didn't really have social media in the way that we do now. So we were not like always online policing each other's perspectives. One anecdote I give is that when Osama bin Laden got killed, I was a junior in college. Maybe it was my senior year. No, I was junior spring. And when Osama bin Laden got killed, we all went and celebrated at the bar. Wow. And we were like, fuck yeah, like Osama bin Laden got killed. And, now there'd probably be like protests on college campuses, like God knows what. So we were not woke. We were 9/11 kids too. So I feel like it was like, we were more moderate. Like we were 9/11 was when we were in 6th grade, but we didn't like the Republicans, but we still liked America, And so anyway, it's gotten so crazy since then. Anyway.
Well, real quick, that started the wokeness. I'm not going to say exactly when it started, but it really felt like it started when, I guess maybe on the political.
It was
right,
like Michael Brown.
Yeah, or even I think of like Jordan Peterson at Toronto in 2016. Yeah, 2016, where like that whole thing happened where he was like, "I'm not going to call you by your preferred pronouns." because you don't control my tongue, not because I'm not like a cordial person or whatever. And then that's when I think the right wing started to really
use the word
seriously. Yeah. I think so. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's funny because I used to remember when I was woke, I was like, why is everyone saying the word woke? It sounds so dumb. Like, yeah, I'm woke. Like, duh.
Yeah.
Like, and so what happened is then I graduated 2012. I did a 2-year stint at a local news station in Mississippi, which was like, and I went to school in New Orleans at Tulane. So I was already in the South, and then I was in Mississippi. Wow. That experience there was not political at all. I mean, it was a very diverse place, and 70% of our staff are Black, they're Southern white people, whatever. It's just a small town in Mississippi, not politicized at all. And then, and identity politics was like not on my radar. You're just treating people like individuals, the identity stuff, and not broken through. Then I went to Now This, which is a very progressive news organization, which, do you know it? Is a cultural touch point for you or not really?
No. Now This, you said in the article, it says it's a millennial news company, which sounds like the last thing I would ever read in my life.
Yeah, it's like BuzzFeed sort of. Yeah. So what happened was, Now This was very at the forefront of digital news in the 2010s. And because it was the first news company that put video on Facebook so that it would automatically play when you're scrolling on your Facebook feed.
Interesting.
So basically in 2015 or whatever it was, Facebook made an update where that if you're scrolling on your Facebook feed, videos will automatically play.
Wow.
So that now, obviously, we scroll on Reels and TikTok all day long. It's normal. But in 2015, that was a new feature. And what Now This did was put videos directly into your news feed with like minimal text describing it in the caption, and then text on screen. So you could watch the whole video without your headphones on, like while you're in line for a coffee.
Yeah.
And so Now This grew to like 14 million followers on Facebook in the 2010s, which, by the way, now individual creators have 14 million followers. But back then that was like crazy.
That is still, 14 million is a lot of people. Also, the whole the Democrats, like the liberals being right on top of the cutting edge technology is not surprising at all. The Republicans are probably just figuring this out today.
Well, now they're crushing it with Daily Wire and stuff. They figured it out. But so the Democrats, so we were on it. So we were like a VC backed startup, basically sort of the same founders who started Huffington Post.
Okay.
And so we were a small newsroom. I was like the 30th employee, and basically everybody was young. Everyone was progressive, very racially diverse, very different, interesting backgrounds. Some like community college, state college kids from New York who are first generation American, a lot of gay, queer people. And like, we were so diverse in everything other than ideology. You basically got there and we were all Bernie bros. Like it was just like, and and mind you, you have to realize I'm coming from Mississippi where I'm one of the only young people. Like it was just more old school. And so I was like, this is my Mecca. Like, I'm like, I found my people.
Yeah.
And so
which was a classic little thing that everybody would say, these are my people. And then the assumption behind that was I found this diverse and the right was like, none of you people are diverse. You all think the exact same thing, but you just look different. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
I know. Well, you know that now. So I got there and all of a sudden I'm in Soho, New York, working so excited. It's so cutting edge. We're crushing it as a news company. And, we're doing interviews with Bernie Sanders. And everyone's like, who's this little news startup that's getting an interview with Bernie Sanders in 2015 when he was running? And then, Trump gets elected. And that's when the whole world went crazy.
Yes. Did you guys have like a safe spaces at work thing after? We had that in my high school when Trump got elected. Yeah.
Well, we had a Madam President cake that we were ready to cut.
Wow.
On the night and I left before the results came in and we were all basically crying by the end. I sobbed the night Trump I yelled at my husband and sobbed. Oh God. And so anyway, but then what happened was,
you yelled at him because you were sorry. I
was like, you don't understand what it means to be a woman.
Yeah.
He voted for Hillary too, but I was like, fuck you. Like,
my dad and I that night was one of the best nights of my life. We went and got donuts in the middle of the night and we were like, Trump won and we're not going to have to deal with Hillary. This is phenomenal.
That's so funny.
It's totally different. Yeah.
One of the best nights of my life.
Yeah, it was. It was great. It was great. I was like the establishment. It was awesome. Anyways, go ahead.
I love that so much. Yeah. So anyway, so then I think what happened was after the Trump won, I think it became not just about wanting free college and free healthcare. It was we're the resistance now. Yeah. And then it just became not just, we want these sort of democratic policies. We want to basically
Yeah.
tell everybody that there's a hierarchy of oppressed versus oppressor.
Yep.
And you have to realize that like, if you are white privileged, like you are on the top of the hierarchy of oppressor. And so you need to just shut up and keep quiet and not say anything because you don't realize you're racist. And
Yeah.
also I lived through like Me Too movement happened, right? So like
Yeah.
while I was there, so since 2015 to 2021, it was all the movements. And again, I'm in a newsroom. So it's like even more tuned in to every single thing that's happening. So like every time there was a police shooting against a black man, we're putting it up. We're watching the videos, you know? So it's like we're like getting that video out there and making it viral. So it's like police brutality against black men, BLM, Me Too movement. All of a sudden now it's
Yeah.
all white men are evil.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and then there's like in the climate movement that I started to cover, it was not just let's recycle more and climate change policies. It was like the global north and the west are oppressing the global south. And we're guilty because of that, right? So like this cultural Marxist, which you're familiar with that is kind of.
I think, I mean, describe it.
Yeah.
Describe
Yeah,
cultural
because I
Marxism.
feel like I say that. And again, I can picture myself. It's such an education over the years where it's like, what the freak are you saying? Cultural Marxist. But basically, so putting everything through the oppressed filter is cultural Marxism. And he did the bourgeois versus the proletariat. And it was the working class versus like the managerial class, the elites.
Right.
That was his stuff. Cultural Marxism is the white versus black.
Yeah.
Queer, straight versus queer.
Yes.
Global north, you know, the developed countries versus developing. Like, so
men versus women.
Men versus women. So wherever, who's the oppressor and who's the oppressed in any interaction. And that's the lens that you need to see it through. And basically like, you know, it's like, then it justifies like anti-racism is okay because like of racism, or it justifies like in the climate movement, like, okay, sure, you know, China or Guatemala, they're polluting more than us, but like it's because like we colonized them, and so like we're still to blame in the West.
Did you say China?
Well, yes.
We colonized China? When?
Like, no, I'm not kidding you. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Everything was like, everything came down to like America is to blame, and you can't criticize like China. You can't criticize Guatemala because these are not white countries.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're kind of like going all over the place, but like that was.
Okay. Can I ask a question? What did you guys talk about this? Did you talk about this dynamic of oppressor, or was it sort of embedded in the culture? Everybody just sort of knew about it. Nobody totally like really explicitly said it.
It was the second one. So it was embedded in the culture. And the way that I describe it is that we had Slack, which, you know, is the company messaging software. So everything is now in this public square in Slack where anyone can comment in the general channel. That's the entire company. Or you have the culture channel where it's a lot of your coworkers and you know who the cool people are, et cetera. And that's just normal human interaction. You're part of groupthink. You're looking for what does the group believe? And so it was a lot of it was just subtle through Slack.
Yeah.
It started to permeate the culture. And again, like I'm a cisgender white woman from America. Like I'm very I don't have a lot of large oppressive scale other than that I'm a woman. And that doesn't even get you very far because I'm a white woman who's straight.
Right.
So as a white woman who's straight, I'm looking around going, okay, now this opinion's not okay. And if I speak out and say that doesn't really make sense, my head's in the chopping block. Well, you're a white woman, sit down, you know, like, and you know what? No one even had to say that to me for me to get that messaging. And it's like how much of this was intentional and how much it was a few outspoken people just like running the dialogue and everybody else just getting into line because they're like, oh, I don't want to be the one who's going to put my neck out and go, hey, this doesn't really make sense. Or like, you know, during BLM protests, like, hey, the torching of small business owners, like that's kind of bad. Yeah.
Like in Minneapolis during the George Floyd debacle, they were like the black community was destroying its own community to prove to the white people that they were oppressive. That's when things that's not when things started to get confusing, but that was one massive example of what are you doing here? Well, and it's like Marxist thing that you said. It's like, we've got to just tear down everything at the end of the day.
It's ideology over reality. And so what happens is that people identify with this ideology, which tells them you're a good person for believing this ideology. This is at least how it like hooked me in was I am now a good person because I subscribe to being atoning for the fact of how I was born and the sin of my birth of having, you know, ancestors that have been in America for several generations. I should feel bad for colonization, etc.
Yeah.
But I can be good if I buy into the groupthink. And if I don't buy into the groupthink and I stick my neck out there, I will be
Mm.
ostracized. I will be kicked out of the group. I will be, bullied and no longer safe. And you have to be really, really confident in yourself and what you believe in and what you stand on to go against that kind of groupthink. And frankly, I
Yeah.
didn't have the foundation of values, again, going back to my upbringing of like, if I was very Christian or something like that, or if I'd been like trained in like classical studies of the West, like I feel like I could have been like, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I believe, but I didn't
Yeah.
have that. And like only now at 35, I feel like I've built that up from my own private study that
Yes.
I can say, hey guys, I'm going to call out this BS.
You're
But
trying to tell
obviously,
me that the public
yeah,
school system didn't prepare you to stand up for what you believe in
I
the
think
real
I'm sending
world?
my kids to Catholic school for K through
Wow.
8. Like I have a 3-year-old and 1-year-old, and I just like came to this realization. My husband like doesn't know yet, but I'm
The
like,
public
dude,
school system is the most evil thing that's ever been created in this country, and I'll defend that to the day I
why
die.
are we not teaching Western classical values? It's like we can't put up. It gets
Yeah.
down to the dead white man, the world,
Yeah.
all the dead white men on the wall.
I'll tell you why. We're not doing that because if you taught Western values, people would believe that large governments are bad and authoritarianism is evil. And teachers wouldn't have then the incentive, like the incentive is embedded in the system. So the teachers
Yeah,
are incentivized to teach big government so that they can
yeah,
continue to get their benefits. And
right.
so they're like, we got to pump out Democrats here. I don't care what it takes. We're not teaching Western values or Christian
Yeah.
values or anything like that. So anyways, sorry,
And
go
then
ahead.
it's so ridiculous too, because the public schools in New York spend $40,000 per student to educate them. And like
Wow.
my son's going to a threes program in Catholic school in my town. It's going to be $9,000.
And you
And
don't
he's going to get an awesome education.
Does New York give you any of
I
that
live in
money?
Connecticut.
Sorry, Connecticut. Well, okay. So in Wisconsin, I think if you homeschool or send your kid to a private
Yeah.
school, you get like half the money that was meant
that's
to
great.
go. Do you guys get anything? Probably not.
No, but my kids are already in daycare and it's like $25,000 a year. So like,
Wow.
I
Wow.
have to,
That's
I'm
a
like,
lot
this
of
is a
money.
steal. Like, I
Sure.
don't know.
Oh, 9,000 seems better.
We have good schools in my town, but I just
Sure.
knowing everything that you're saying, it's not even about like our testing and everything is good, but it's like the value system
Yeah.
it's in the air. It's like the water that they're going to swim in. And I'm just like,
Yes.
holy crap. I need to at least protect them during like elementary school. Maybe by the time they're in high school, if they're educated enough and inoculated, I could put them in
Sure.
maybe for sports and stuff. But like those young years,
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
full
an
time.
aside. But
Yeah.
basically from that, I just became very left wing.
Yeah.
I was so then do you want to know how I learned about AOC?
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So then Trump gets elected, everyone's freaking out. And then I get invited to this party that was like a very small media party for candidates who were taking back the House. Democratic candidates are taking back the House because when Trump won, Democrats were left flat footed and everyone's like, what the heck is going on? Like, we should be better.
Sounds like a really fun party. That's not.
I know, but the thing is, at the time, it like was like because it was like unique, like at the time, I was like,
the system. Yeah,
I'm fighting the system, and I'm fighting Trump, the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And so I go, and Alyssa Slotkin, is Alyssa Slotkin's Michigan, I think. Do you know who she is?
Yeah.
She's a senator.
Yeah. You said it in your article. She's
So
Michigan.
she was there because she's now in the Senate, but she was running for the House. She ended up winning, and then AOC was there, and AOC and I are the exact same age.
Yeah.
So we immediately hit it off. Like I really liked her. I got her number and then I chatted with her a bit and I invited her to the Now This Is Studios 2 months later to do an interview. And so we sat down for an hour and she talked and she just came off so authentic, all the right talking points. Like she said things like, we've never had a POC elected in New York and my district is 70% POC. And you're like, okay. Which I was like, yes, girl.
Yeah. So do you still have her number? Like, do you still have contact with her?
I think her number's changed, but I do have her old number. And I couldn't even get through to her after she got elected because it became so insane. But I had been in touch with her multiple times. I've seen her 3 or 4 times since she's been elected. But she became so big and then it's sort of she's on another stratosphere. And so it was I was kind of awkward. I was intimidated, even though I was we are peers. And then all of a sudden she took off and then you're kind of. But she was, but I have to say, and I say this in the piece, I think I'm very generous in the piece. I actually,
Yeah.
I know that was I got criticized both sides.
Yeah.
But like, I think that AOC's heart is in the right place. She does want what we all want, which is less inequality, less poverty. But the ideas that she's pushing and the ideology that she's entrenched in does not work. It's so destructive. But I think that she's like a useful idiot. I don't think she
Really?
thinks past the next thing. I think she truly thinks capitalism is evil.
So how long are you willing to think that for? Because this is, I could see like, okay, 25, 26, 30, or even 30, you're like, okay, their heart's in the right place.
Right.
Now she's like pushing policy. It's hurting people. And she's just like, I'm not going to look at the data. I'm not going to look at what's happening in my own district. I'm not going to look at what's happening because of the things that I'm promoting on social media or whatever. At what point do we say, all right, maybe these people are just bad actors and they're actually just Marxists who just want power and control? Do you have any threshold there?
I mean, I truly believe that there are some bad actors. I think Mamdani is worse than AOC.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Because AOC, I mean, I just think at the AOC, again, like you have to realize if you're in this leftist ideology and your entire identity is tied up and this is what good people believe, you don't think hard. It's not a real critical thinking mechanism. It's an emotional identity thing. So she's thinking, if I just spend more money, if it's not that the policies are wrong, it's the way that it was enacted last time. It's if we just get a little bit more taxes from the rich, if we just get a little bit more. And I think she's not looking at the facts because it's not about the facts. It's about her feeling like a good person who's trying to help working class people. So I don't know. That's my take. And I think it's a more, once you start to say like people are like, like calculating, it's kind of like a dead end versus like, I think if they're ignorant, you can still reach them. But I mean, I'm not necessarily going to try to reach her, but like, it's just an ideology that hooks into people's desire to be good. And then even when the outcomes are bad, they don't blame their ideology. They think it's just because it didn't work quite right that time. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've heard. Yeah, I mean, I hear that all the time. I mean, I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. That's generally the socialism hasn't been tried correctly. We just need to try it again. And it's like, all right, I think it has been tried correctly. But anyways, I can see what you're saying. I think there is some validity to her being just a useful idiot and not really knowing what the outcome is. But I mean, when I was reading, I can't remember who I was reading. It might have been the Free Press. It said something about Mamdani wanting to create these grocery stores that are run by the city. Also, that he like the amount of money he wants to spend is obviously unbelievable. And like the top 300 richest people in New York pay like 60 to 80% of the taxes. A lot of those people are like, if this guy gets elected, I'm leaving. And if they leave, then he's not going to have the money to do you think that these people like AOC and Mamdani, do they know where the money comes from? Or do they just think it's like magically printed?
Think that rich people are bad. Like I get, like they are Marxists. Like even if they wouldn't call themselves Marxists, like, and it's again, like I wouldn't call myself that back when I was in this ideology. I'd be like, no, I'm a democratic socialist. I'm just a Democrat. But they don't realize that they are being run by this ideology that like successful people, high earners are bad. And like that was something I believed for so many years. And now in my content, I'm like, guys, high achieving people create jobs. Being rich means you're hiring people. It means you're spending your money on stuff. It's not like you're holding your gold coins in your castle and not seeing anything. Like most people who make a lot of money, and sure, there's the Nepo babies. There's an exception to every rule. There's a bad outlier that people will point to. But the far and away majority of hardworking people in this country earn their wealth because of something that they created that added value to society. You can't say that about a bureaucrat who's getting paid 6 figures or 7 figures and literally stealing from industrious people who just want to work. It's so pervasive in this ideology, and like the idea that rich people are bad is like but the young people say the system sucks, so they don't work within the system, and then they're poor and they're miserable. And then they say the system sucks, and it's like, well, that was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Like Californians moving to Texas. Texas is now becoming more purple. Maybe even in my lifetime will become blue. And it's like, what did you not learn in California? Like, what did you not learn? Don't get me
started.
Yeah, but they don't learn anything. I mean, there was an interesting statistic that I think Jordan Peterson brought up one time that like, I think like 1 to 5% of the population is like, does 90% of the productivity because there's a very high capacity people, high IQ, whatever. You think of like Elon Musk, people can say whatever they want about him. The guy is producing more than everybody in the country. And that's just the things are disproportionate, and the liberal or sort of the Marxist ideology assumes that that human nature is all equal across the board, and that the only reason anybody ever gets ahead is because of
someone like suppress somebody.
Exactly.
Like exploitation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I know. I'm really on an Ayn Rand kick lately. I'm like, she says stuff like that, and I'm like, preach, girl.
Yeah. Well, when you were in this ideology, I've always been confused with people that are in this ideology. I've never been able to make myself go in that direction. When you're in this, you just feel like you're a good person. You feel like you're trying to do the right thing. You feel like everybody else is oppressed. When you started, so you help AOC get elected. You do this video, do this interview, it blows up, it does very well. She obviously becomes massively famous outside of being successful in politics. When did you start to shift into like, have I made a mistake? Because you committed almost the unforgivable sin. Like you got AOC elected. How could you?
Hey, unforgivable sin.
I'm kidding.
I know. No, but it's true. Sometimes I really think about it. I'm like, ooh. But maybe everything is meant for a reason, because I feel like what you're saying, you can't relate. And I'm like, I can't, like, I know the mindset of this mindset, like, well, because it was my mind. Yes. So maybe that's how I can use my powers for good. But,
absolutely.
So that was 2018. And then I really got more into the climate movement. I had a series I was covering climate change. I interviewed Greta Thunberg. I covered the Green New Deal. And so I really went that route, and I became more like, not really politics, but like sustainability and climate change, or I called it the climate crisis. Yes. Covered that. And then, I went to Standing Rock. Well, so I went to Standing Rock actually before I interviewed AOC, but I will say that like the whole time that I was covering stuff, specifically around the environment, I always would have a pit in my stomach that I was not covering it 100% accurately.
Really?
Yes. And I even would like be like over a glass of wine, like, like I'd be drinking with people. And like after even Standing Rock, I was like, oh, it doesn't actually really make sense. Like,
you said Standing Rock?
Oh, sorry. No one knows what Standing Rock is. It was a pipeline. Okay. So it's, again, our generational gap here. Yeah. So Standing Rock was a big protest in 2016 that protested an oil pipeline that was going through North Dakota. And a Native American tribe fought it. And all of a sudden started a sit-in protest on their tribe, because they said that the pipeline was like going through their sacred land that wasn't even on their tribal lands. But again, you could argue everything used to be their land. Yeah. And it was going under their water source, the Missouri River, and like could maybe leak and like poison them, even though like the safety regulations are so high and that wasn't going to happen. But they started this protest called Standing Rock, and like Shailene Woodley, the actress, and all the classic Mark Ruffalo, you can picture the group started to be like Standing Rock, Standing Rock. And so I started covering Standing Rock, and I made Standing Rock go viral too.
Did you? So also that was back when it actually really mattered, when actors and actresses in Hollywood
did stuff. Nowadays
they do. Yeah, they do stuff, and you're like, "What are you doing? You have no idea what you're talking about." But back then, if like Mark Ruffalo was, everybody was like, "Oh my goodness, we need to do whatever."
Shailene Woodley, she was like, "Come to Standing Rock." Yeah, and I was like, "I'll be there." So like thousands of people went. There was a huge camp set up with like teepees and all this stuff. It was a month-long thing, and Obama was still president, and it was happening leading up to Trump getting elected. Then Trump got elected, and then you have those 3 months where Trump is the future president, but Obama was still president. And Obama then paused the building of this pipeline, even though it was already in production and already had gotten approved by his government, and paused it, which is like such a government overreach. Yeah. And then basically because of these protests, he was like, I don't know, we should look. It was so crazy.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. I mean, I feel like that's a little bit, the Democrats get themselves caught in these situations quite often. It happened with the whole Israel-Palestine thing, where they're like, oh crap, we supported this thing where we support Israel, but then like half of the people that are a part of our base hate Israel. So so they don't know what to do. And that must have been one of those initial instances in which Obama approves something, he realizes a bunch of people don't like it, so then they stop doing it.
Then he goes back on it. And then, of course, the day Trump got elected, he went back on it, which was the right decision. Like, we need pipeline infrastructure in this country. But anyway, so I went to this thing, and boosted it a lot. But then even, I'm not even kidding you, a few months later, I remember sitting at my apartment and having a few drinks with friends, and somebody and I were talking about it, and I would like, it almost was surprising myself, where I was like, well, it doesn't actually really make sense. And I was like, whoa, like that's actually what I really believe. So
Wow.
because I was indoctrinated into this mindset, I never really actually listened to what I actually believed. And so I was just trying to get a confirmation from the group. So that's why it took me so many years to deprogram, to be like, wait, what do I truly believe? And like, what are my values? And so it took me so long. And I even left now this in 2021 at that point. And this was like during COVID, I wasn't even really back in the office, and I left. Then I had my son in 2022. And so the big like cracks, I guess, in the mindset for me were like COVID, seeing all the what's it called, PPE, personal protection equipment being rolled out that was plastic. And I had been worried about using a plastic straw for the past 5 years. And all of a sudden everyone has disposable plastic masks everywhere. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is actually ridiculous, because like I could worry about myself for the rest of my life and feel like shit. And like in one day we use more plastic than like I will ever have an impact on. And by the way, we're completely fine. Like we're surviving. Our infrastructure could handle it, obviously. So that was one thing. And then also like seeing the emissions go down, 5% at one point, because the entire world shut down. And I'm like, okay, if we wanted to like stop emissions and be net zero by 2050, like all these places are saying as like virtue signaling, what are we supposed to do? Stop the economy, stop the world? Like I'd rather live with climate change.
And kill a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly. So
and
those
ignore
were like,
the fact that according to NASA, the Earth is like 20% greener than it was 30 years ago.
I know. Nobody talks about that.
Let's
you get
not talk
dismissed as
about
a climate denier. I need to make a video about that.
Yeah. Well, it's a fact. I mean, that Jordan
it's a
Peterson,
fact.
he brought that up first. And I was like, what?
No, it's
NASA
huge.
said this? Yeah.
It's a huge thing. And it's actually nice. Trump's people that he has, and now they just did a good, like measured, Department of Energy did a really measured take on like how carbon emissions are not a deadly pollutant. That's what Obama's EPA had said, that CO2 is a deadly pollutant. It's like, dude, it's a fucking plant food.
Yeah.
And so they're like, luckily a lot of this is getting rolled back. But anyway, so I then went to a nonprofit for a year. And then when I was there for a year, became a fan of Barry through like my coworker told me about her, listened to her podcast, got the job here right in 2022 when we did the Twitter files and the Free Press launched. So I started 2 weeks before the Free Press launched.
Yeah.
And so then this whole time I'm now taking behind the scenes roles, because I did not believe anything that I had said at my old job. And I had built up my following to like 50,000 subscribers or followers on Instagram.
Without believing anything, without having any idea what you believe in, you did that. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I did that because I was pushing the climate agenda.
Yeah, totally. But that's like, I think people should just sit and think about that for a second and ask themselves who they're listening to and why they're listening to those people. Yeah, well, and I'm not saying you're an idiot. Like, I'm glad that you've come to where you've come to, but I think there's a lot of people out there who have never read a book, who haven't read a book in like 5 years. They don't know what they actually believe in. They just hear something somewhere else and they just regurgitate that nonsense, which is, by the way, what the entire public school system has taught them to do. Right. You regurgitate facts or nonsense, and then you get good grades and everybody treats you like you're a super genius. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I went basically silent, and then I was here at the Free Press, and the Free Press is the best place ever, where the FP.com guys, check it out, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. So what's so great about the Free Press is it's founded against this ideology that I had been indoctrinated in, where Barry was like, we've lost the plot. We've got to bring back journalism that is based in reality, in Western values, in allowing people to think for themselves and not pushing an ideology, which what's New York Times does, CNN, all these places. So that, even being here for the 2.5 years, I got like deprogrammed even further, where I was like, whoa, what do I actually believe? Let's go through illegal immigration, abortion. Like, and I was like, you know what? I'm actually pretty conservative on a lot of issues, because it comes down to just like facts over feelings. You know, you're kind of like, wait a minute, like I get it. No human is illegal, but like we need borders. Like,
well, you're the Ben Shapiro. I mean, that's facts. Don't care about your feelings. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. So I wrote a few pieces for the Free Press while I was here. So I wrote that piece about Standing Rock. And then I'm not kidding you, 3 months ago, and this is why you reached out to me, like right before Memorial Day weekend, I finally got to a place internally where I was like, I'm ready. I'm making content. Like, I'm going to start making videos. And like, seriously, it's been insane, because everybody's like, holy shit, like you made a 180,
changed
you're
your
saying
mind.
all
Yeah.
this stuff. But it took me 5 years of silence to
Right.
build myself up internally to be like, what do I believe? Let me have the strength to
Mm-hmm.
now go to war,
Yeah.
essentially,
Well,
with my old followers.
sure. And I think that that's good. I think that more people should come out and be like, I mean, I think there's a lot more people that actually have flipped on some of these ideas, but they're
Yeah.
still afraid to say it because the, whatever we want to call it, the woke mob, I don't know, that's all
Right.
cringe language, whatever, whoever those people are, the
Yeah.
like insane people, the insane like 3% people in our 3% of people in our society who will just belittle you and say whatever they need to say to try to shut you up, will do that. They'll do that and
Right.
they'll do it on social media. In real life, I don't know. They don't say as much, but
Right. It's also permeated culture. Like, I feel like
yeah,
there's so many businesses where it's like the DEI stuff, and like the last thing you want as a worker is to be labeled as a racist or a fascist. And like that is a real problem in a lot of places. And I get DMs all the time. I got a nice DM from a middle-aged man who works in the science field, and he was like, this ideology has permeated my lab, and like I cannot speak up because of my identity. They will come for my head.
Yeah. No,
and so it's very real, even though people aren't really getting like quote unquote canceled anymore. It's still the spiral of silence is still silencing normal people, and it's having real world impacts because our culture is now focused on ideology over reality.
Yeah.
And that's why you see things like what's going on in California, like even the wildfire mismanagement there. Like if we were based in reality, that was preventable. But instead they're making the fire department more DEI. Like they're hiring more like lesbian and like handicapped firemen instead of being like, does our fire department work?
You don't know that lesbians are better at fighting fires than everybody else?
I actually did know that. No, that makes sense.
Statistic. Yeah, it's actually a statistic that the New York Times made up. What you're saying reminds me of a quote, one of my favorite quotes. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I understand that, and if they say it's Edmund Burke, but then they're like, we don't actually know who said it. Okay, so the thing that's a little bit frustrating to me is there's a lot of people who are like, look, my work, my job, my church, like if you come to Madison, Wisconsin, and drive down the street, every church has a trans flag. And you're like, that seems to contradict the whole thing that you're doing here. That people don't stand up and say, hey, look, this is ridiculous. I'm willing to lose my job for this.
I know.
And that's a major problem. People are more interested in their security. They're more interested in their financial, their financial security and what they built up. And I understand that. Look, I got like 2 kids, a third on the way. You want to keep your job because if you don't, it's scary. But we've had 30 years of nobody saying anything.
I know.
And now we're in this really strange situation. We're on this weird situation on the right and on the left where I've been on the right side. So I started on the right side of things. So like, not the right side of things, but the right wing side.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I was part of political campaigns. I worked for a news company in Minneapolis, like the only conservative Republican news company in Minnesota. And if you went against their particular narratives, they'll push you out. So like some of those narratives now are sort of found in the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson camp, which are like, some of them are like Holocaust denial. And I was like, hey, I don't think we should deny the Holocaust. I think that's kind of stupid.
It's a big problem.
You're controlled by the media, like the Jews are paying you. It's like, no, I wish, because I'm poor, but no.
I'd be sick.
That'd be great. And so if you go outside of that, so now you have these two weird narratives that are totally rooted
we call it.
The woke right, which I think is actually an accurate descriptor, and a lot of people on the right don't like it.
It's anti-American, anti-West. Like it's denying reality again, and it's trying to say that there are no good guys or bad guys. It's a weird postmodern, like you can't say Churchill was a good guy. It's like, well, actually he wasn't, and it's like, no, but like there actually are bad things in the world, and like. We should be able to disagree about some stuff. There should be stuff that we disagree on. And I think that's where the free press tries to occupy, and everything is, we try our best. They're going to be imperfect. But like Barry comes back to just like being like, we have to agree on the same set of facts around like our history. And then like, let's occupy this space and disagree. But like when you're starting just Holocaust denial stuff, like it's laced in this, like, well, it's more complicated. And it's like, okay, but some things aren't complicated. Like sometimes there are evil things in the world.
Yeah. Like, actually, most things aren't complicated. Like if you chop up a child because they think that they're a girl when they're a boy, that's not complicated. That's
I agree.
Evil. And it's black and white. And the millennial talking point, I mean, I don't love the millennials, but I think they encapsulate this sort of progressive rhetoric or jargon of it's too complicated for anybody to ever understand. But what they end up doing is in that foggy sort of complicated postmodern language, they do end up taking a position, but they just hide behind this guise of it's just too complicated. But yeah, like we are going in this direction, but it's too complicated.
Nobody knows what they stand for or believe.
Exactly.
Like that's the biggest thing that's come out of this for me. And like I even like going into like Christianity and stuff, it's like I'm all of a sudden like, yo, I'm a Christian. I need to have some fucking value system.
Yeah. Sure.
Like because otherwise I am lost at sea. Yeah. And what happened for me was my empathy was hijacked. And so I was hijacked into these progressive values and like going back to like, I'm like literally like trying to understand Christianity even more because I'm not very studied on it, even though like I go to church and like belong to my church. But like, I'm like, I need to like get that on top of like, I feel like Douglas Murray is a huge inspiration for me, like War in the West, like his like words, like Barry, my boss, is obviously inspiration for me being like, no guys, there is stuff worth protecting in our culture. The West in America is actually exceptional in that we are the most diverse, racially diverse culture in the history of the world with the most economic opportunity for anyone. You can come here and truly you can live the American dream. Is it perfect? Obviously not. But we can criticize our government. We can have free speech. You know, you have the freedom to protest. Like these things, I don't think people realize when they're really on the left and they just say, woe is me, late stage capitalism, like my life sucks. How good we have it. They have no concept. And so when I say like, hey, by the way, taking that context, I get attacked by this like woke mind virus blob. And I've had it from people in my family who I'm very close with otherwise, like old friends, old colleagues, like venomous attacks on my character. And I'm like, you don't even know what you stand for. Like, you don't even know that you have been completely hijacked by an ideology that's basically attached itself to your nervous system. And you are now being a mouthpiece for it.
Yeah. They have no idea.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like it's so important for me to speak out. And I feel so motivated now because I'm like you said, all the people who are afraid to speak out because of the nature of their job. It's like, if I can be a model for people that like, this is a way, like, and maybe they're not willing to like, maybe they hate Trump, like whatever. I'm not even getting into that, but like, they don't relate to Ben Shapiro. They don't relate to Megyn Kelly. They don't relate to the right that I think the right is. There are a lot of people on the right who are saying a lot of this stuff, even like Brett Cooper from the Daily Wire. There's a lot of people that I like on the right, but that's too far for a lot of people that I grew up with. And so like, I am a palatable person that occupies like a foot in both worlds, but saying a lot of the same things, but maybe not using the same terminology that turns people off. Like, so it's really, really important that more sensible people feel empowered to speak.
Well, you have to talk. I mean, you have to talk about this stuff, and if you don't, it's basically won't exist. Which I think we are on the cusp of. Which during the COVID thing, like I think we are on the cusp, maybe not of not existing, but of like all forms of communication outside of the regime being completely shut down, and everybody. I'm
so glad I wasn't like awake to all this stuff during COVID because I think I lost my mind. Like I didn't like the stuff, but I didn't see it as clearly as I see it now, and I'm like, God, if I had lived through like the 2020 stuff and known what I know now, I would have been so scared.
Yeah.
But like, I was kind of just like, oh.
Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. I will say though, that just like going back even further, obviously the Western values are very important, but the Western values they're derivative of Protestant values, which are derivative of the Calvinist perspective, which the Catholics want to pretend like America was founded as a Catholic country, which is ridiculous. It's not true. I'm a Protestant. People say you're biased. It's not. I'm not biased. It's history. Apart from that, that was one thing I was going to ask you is like, I'm hardcore conservative.
Yeah.
As conservative as you can get, which I think there's a difference between conservative and Republican, because I think Trump is a liberal in function. He is. Yeah. He doesn't have values in the ways that I want him to have values. And so there's a lot of equivocating happening in society right now, but the free press, I read the free press more than I probably read anything else.
Yeah.
And
thanks.
Yeah, it's great. I like the free press. And the interesting thing is that well, the question I have is like, what is that? Like, what is the free press and why is it able to not fall into the sort of elitist New York Times, at the Atlantic, Washington Post, like what they did during COVID, where it was like, well, all of the experts are telling us that, you know, this is wear your mask and blah, 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 blah. And then like years later, they're like, actually masks didn't work. The thing that I thought that journalists were supposed to do is sort of be like, yeah, but are the experts right? Like, let's look
Right.
into the data. Are they actually right? And they just didn't do that. They just became
That's
a
too much
mouthpiece.
work.
It's way too much work. So why is the free press different?
Yeah.
Not to like, yeah, I guess you can.
Not to toot our own horn here,
Yeah,
but my
yeah.
boss will be really happy. No,
Right.
no.
There you
So
go.
I think it goes back to Barry Weiss, who's the founder's like personal story, because she's Jewish. She's been a Zionist since she was at Columbia University. And I think she saw this oppressed mindset coming up in her university, which I wouldn't even have noticed it. I didn't see it in my time, and she's 5 years older than me, but but the thing about the Jews that she says is like, they don't fit into the oppressed mindset, because literally less than 100 years ago, they were all exterminated. And now they have created the most successful country in the Middle East, and they're all very successful. So if you were going off of oppressed, yes, they are oppressed, but they are not, sorry, in the past they were oppressed, but today they're no longer oppressed. Yeah. And so really, it turns everything on its head. And so the Jews have never fit. And so I think that's why from her vantage point, she was able to see very early on, like, whoa, the makings of this mindset that now has taken over everything. She was like, no, I don't like this, because I can tell they hate Israel. It makes no sense. Yeah. So
yeah, they hate Israel. No, go ahead. Sorry.
And then she got kicked out. So then she was in the New York Times around 2020, and she was a opinion editor. So she would commission, more conservative op-eds, et cetera. But she was still liberal. She was like a Hillary Clinton liberal.
She's a lesbian.
And,
I mean, that's
she's a lesbian, but she comes from she has conservative values, I feel like, because she's religious and she's Jewish, and she has more traditional values in a lot of senses, but is still a New York liberal. And then while she was there, she was, again, on Slack, she's getting dragged for saying different opinions, like knife emojis going next to her, her name, all this stuff, side Slacks about her. And she went to higher ups and she was like, guys, you're going to do anything about this? And they were like, no. Basically, because she wasn't oppressed enough. Her identity was not oppressed enough for them to protect her.
She's a minority woman lesbian. That's not enough.
But it's not enough.
That sucks.
It was not enough at the height of 2020 George Floyd stuff. She wasn't Black, basically. And so she wrote her amazing resignation letter that went super viral, being like, this is taken over in my newsroom. Blah, blah. So I think knowing that background, that's the world in which Barry occupies, and the founding of the Free Press is going up against this mindset, this sort of woke mindset. And there's the people that she's brought on as regular contributors, like Neil Ferguson, Walter Russell Reed.
Abigail Schreier was
Abigail
original.
Schreier. She's kind of found the people who've gotten a little bit kicked out of those places too, because they're thinking too deeply, they're too nuanced, they're too pro-West, and brought them into the fold. And it's just been this slow movement of all these brilliant people. We're like a magnet for this talent of people who are sick of those institutions, and we were a home for them. And so then it just has spiraled into this really great place in the last 2.5 years. And she's amazing, and she's built it up. So I think that's why we're able to attract people. And interestingly, our newsroom is still ideologically diverse on a lot of things in regards to policy, because we did a poll right before the election, and a third were put in third party independent. They didn't want to vote for anybody. A third said they were voting for Kamala, and a third said they were voting for Trump. And we did that from our staff, on a retreat dinner that we had. And it's not you hire based on political opinions, right? That just genuinely was the result. And Barry was like, wait, this is actually amazing. I think she ended up putting it in some fundraising thing, because she was like, look, this is unique. What we have is special. And we're not just a 99% Democratic voting newsroom like you have at NPR and New York Times and these places. And so it's a very special place.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. And that the culture makes sense. And I think it's a healthy culture for news in that way. Obviously, you're going to have conservative media outlets like the Daily Wire, where you're going to get 99% voting for Trump. That's fine. But the problem with the New York Times and the Washington Post and some of these other major news companies was that they pretended to be the free press. We're diverse. Right. Everybody's different. They had David French writing for the conservatives, who's a complete sellout scumbag. And they were 99% voting for Kamala Harris or whatever, and so everybody knew that. And,
it's so annoying.
Everybody knew that. And they're like, no, just be stupid and pretend we're actually diverse ideologically. So I think that's great. I do. Just
own it. Be I'm very left. I think that's a problem with my family and people who are still very on the left is they still think of the New York Times as this bulwark of Western media. And it is to them the standard. And you're like, you don't realize that newsroom has been ideologically captured.
And no one cares what they say.
Yeah.
Literally no one cares. CNN, MSNBC, people are like, late night.
Yeah.
People are like, oh my goodness, Stephen Colbert is gone. No one even knew he was on.
I know.
Actually,
Yeah.
Nobody watches that garbage. Nobody
The
watches
crying
Jimmy
over
Fallon.
that was hilarious.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Nobody watches.
It's not impactful. It's so stupid. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to, so looking to the future. So you're a millennial, you're 35. Your generation is now moving into some of these more prominent positions of authority across the country. Obviously the boomers they're holding on to some of those top positions. One day, maybe they'll stop. But the millennials are, you got Mamdani, you've got what's happening over in Minneapolis. I can never remember that guy's name, but
yeah, I know you're talking about Farad. I don't know.
Whatever. That's racist white people don't know the name.
You don't know that POC's name?
Yeah, for the Somali guy.
I'm gonna just call him a POC. That's so humanizing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's better. What's the future? Because there's so many young people that I know that, and you probably know, and they're across the country. And I always said this. I said this in 2022. I was working for the Dr. Scott Jensen campaign. He was running against Tim Walz in Minnesota. And before the election, we kept hearing red wave. Biden has done so poorly in the first 2 years. There's going to be this massive red wave. It wasn't. It was a blue trickle.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, one of the first years where millennials and Gen Zers made up more than 50% of the voting bloc across the country. And I just kept saying, you guys have no idea what is coming for you. The younger generations are totally captured by Marxist ideology. You think you're going to have a red wave, and it's not. And over the past couple of years, the conservative right has continued to go left in its desire to become this amalgamation of all the people who don't like the people who go way too far left. But
it's like populism, yeah.
Exactly. The populist right, the Trump people, they don't actually have any guiding like North Star. They don't have any value system that they're
other than Trump.
Other than Trump, which is like not that's a guy. He's a guy. And I actually personally I like a lot of what Trump does, but
I agree. It's like he does some good stuff. He's done a good job of preventing us from being Europe.
Exactly. He's done great. He's done a bunch of good stuff. But then the question is like, what happens after that? So my question is like, are you seeing anything positive from the younger generations moving towards maybe a more conservative mindset or whatever that is? Do you see any of that?
I think so. I mean, I think look at the conservative. Isn't Gen Z more conservative than the millennials? Like Gen Z men went broke for Trump. I think a lot of them are woke right though. They are. I feel
they're like
they're like Tucker kids. But we could get them back. We can get them back.
You think so?
I think everything. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, look at me. I'm a good example. Like maybe I'm a little bit more extreme, but like, sure. I mean, the amount of people that told me secretly that they voted for Trump, that in my neighborhood, I'm like, no way. Like it's just so crazy. So like, I feel like if you look at the way that the country's gone, like I think it's the millennials who are going back toward the center. You have the immigrants, Latinos and Black communities. Yes. I feel like there's so much potential there.
That's very good. Yeah.
So I do think that the left, it's just like more and more people seeing through the delusion of the left, and like me waking up to it. And again, like I would love a healthy left. I think that the left could be a really great path for the left we think the government can be a tool for society that works well. So instead of, before we spend any more money, let's make it work. Let's go in. Why aren't we getting the results from schools? Like we believe in this institution. Let's get it to work. Like that to me would be a healthy outlet. I don't know about these abundance bros. I feel like it's too top down, but maybe what I described is just like libertarian, Republican, but
I mean, it's a value system. I mean, the Democrats used to be the party of the little guy, or they used to kind of go up against corporate, because the Republicans, who are not fiscally conservative anymore after the big beautiful bill, they completely got rid of that. They were sort of willing to allow for, maybe not allow for like monopoly style, but like that sort of capitalism going too far, where there's no restraint on anything. And so the Democrats were there to like keep that in check and try to help somebody out when they needed help. That went to, we're just going to give free things away all the time. I don't know how you would stop that regression.
We need reality-based politics. That should be the next
big
movement.
thing.
Like, what works?
Yeah.
Let's
Practical.
advocate for what works.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's gonna change. I personally feel like JD Vance will just win in 2028. Yeah. I feel like JD will be interesting because I feel like he's Trump, but has more conservative values. I think he has a value system.
Yeah.
And I also think he's a lot more palatable, just the way that he speaks. And so like I could see Vance being almost like what Reagan's second term was, like sweeping.
Do you know?
And I do like that Vance, to me, like I think he was very black and white thinking around restraining. And I like that he's become a realist where he's like, actually, guys, like we should fight Iran. It's a shitty place that wants us to die. Yeah. So he's moderated behind Trump and that stuff, but has his values. So like, I just don't see, if the Democrats put up AOC, there's no chance in hell she wins.
You don't think so? I'm nervous.
There's no chance because imagine her negotiating with the Ayatollah. There's just going to be too many people. And that's why Kamala, like on an instinctual base level, there's going to be so many people who are just going to go, I cannot do this. I do not feel safe. Like AOC cannot negotiate with Putin.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously. Yeah. No, I mean,
just saying, like, I think people will pick their safety.
Yeah.
Over
I think you're right.
a social, like, it doesn't matter. There's going to be so many silent voters who are just going to be like, I cannot vote for AOC. It's too, Kamala, thinking about her in negotiations with China and Iran, and like, it scared the hell out of me.
I don't even want to think about where we would be. We would be dead. Probably. I don't know what would happen, but like,
I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah. She wouldn't have been negotiating any sort of peace deals anywhere in the world because I don't know. Like,
look what's happening in the UK, by the way. I don't know if you're following there. I mean, we've written about it a lot. Like,
the UK is a disaster. Yeah.
It's a disaster. And with their silencing, like if you post criticizing immigration, like you could face like jail time. Yeah. And I think what's happened in here and in America, when you call out like, hey guys, Canada's not that fucking great. Like look at their fucking economy over the last decade. It's stagnated while we're continuing to go up. They're free healthcare. People are dying by the thousands waiting to get healthcare. And then you have Europe where they're becoming so overrun with immigration and like their native people there are so shunned from speaking out and there's actually policies in place to punish them. And you have like the regular like leftist person, like a lot of my family, like they still think that like Europe is this socialist like dream world. They have their perception of what's going on in those places is like so outdated. In America, like, we have our problems, no shit. But I feel like people don't realize like how good we have it here.
We have it great. But then you go to places like Minneapolis and it's completely over. Whatever. This is going to sound bad, but it's overrun by immigrants because of the policy. I don't care. Like I like immigrants or whatever, but the Somal, like, why all the Somalis are there. It's because, what's her, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name.
Ilhan Omar.
Yeah. And now they're trying to get a Somali to run the city, be the mayor, which I have no problem with the where they're from or anything like that. It's the ideology that they're bringing with them.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like
the groupthink that they bring with, I
was thinking about this. Like, we're so lucky in the U.S. that like our border nations are like Latin America, which are but like I'm saying it's like Catholic, but like it's a culture thing. Unfortunately, like it's so. And I have friends that are Muslim and they're Reform Muslim and moderate Muslim. And like, that's not what we're talking about. It's like the more extreme. And like, it's like truly in conflict with the West and the values that we have. There's honor killings of women because their families will kill them because they become too Westernized.
Yeah.
Like, that's real shit.
Yeah. Well, and so you're a woman, obviously hopefully not misgendering.
I identify as a woman and I am a woman.
Well, one of the big chasms in the younger generation is male, female. So, I mean, I even have friends who are like in their 30s and they're like, they live in Boston or New York. They're like, we can't find women to date because they're all insufferable progressives who hate children and think that like their 9-to-5 managerial role at some company that nobody's ever heard of is the most important thing that, has ever happened to their life, and I
hate this
for that. So you're right. Like younger men are kind of being like, screw this. I'm not going to just be controlled by a bunch of feminists and told what I can and can't think. And they're voting for Trump. They're voting on the more conservative side of things. The women aren't. And actually, I just heard this morning that, and I think this is indicative of a larger cultural problem, the birth rate as of this month is one of the lowest it's ever been in American history. It's like 1.5.
So crazy.
And obviously way below replacement rate, because women are like, they think that their main end and goal and purpose in life is to work jobs, not to be condescending, but to work jobs that no one cares about, that you can be easily replaced in, rather than doing the thing that you can't be replaced in, which is being a mother, which is an amazing thing. And no one can replace you as your child's mother.
Right.
What do you do to get these women to like wake up to the fact that, I mean, because the millennials are getting old. Let's just be honest. You guys are in your 30s. You can't have kids forever. And if the what do you do about these young millennial women who are they're dead set in this progressive feminist ideology? What do you do about that?
I don't know.
Fix the problem.
I saw a video on TikTok, and it was someone like filming their like really cute friend, this guy, and it was a guy on the camera being filmed. She was like, he's great at this, he's great at that. Like, he's single, ladies. And everyone in the comments was like, who did he vote for? Who did he vote for?
Exactly. Who
and
did
I'm
he
like,
vote for?
You think you're so smart?
Yeah.
Like,
also, he voted for the guy who was a little bit less liberal than the other liberals that were already there. What is the?
And also, I'm like, my favorite person is. It's so funny because like I'm more like outspoken, obviously, so people know that I'm more conservative, and it's like I get a target on my back, whatever. But my favorite person to always have a conversation with, and they're always into being free pressers, are my girlfriends who are married to conservatives, who maybe like they were leftist growing up, but then like, or they were very left, but then being married to a conservative or dating a conservative, it forces them to look at their opinions, and they always end up becoming free press fans because they're like, I know everything is more complicated than what my algorithm is showing me and what my friends post, breathlessly upset about every single thing, because it's like you're sharing a home with someone who goes, but think about this, these are actually the stats, blah, blah, blah. And so like I love the liberal woman like married to the conservative man. But I don't know, I think I don't know, it's just it's hard. I'm not an expert on it. It's unfortunate. I think we've kind of lost the plot, and it's a culture thing, but I don't have a fix. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. You don't have a fix, but if you've done social media, you've obviously made things go viral. If you were trying to make this go viral, whatever this is, this like women stop ruining your life thing, which I feel like should be easy to make go viral, but it's been very difficult. Like, what would the campaign be? What would the slogan be? What would and again, I'm just asking stuff off the cuff. What, like, for you've switched because you've been in the mud. Like you've had to like get your hands dirty, trying to figure out what, like, you helped AOC get elected. You were part of the left-wing media, the cutting edge thing. And not most people are not doing that. And so you got a lot of women who are just taking in algorithmic, whatever groupthink, and they don't have any sort of idea of what they believe in. Do you think it just needs to happen sort of over the span of your life? People are like just going to run into these situations that you ran into where you're like, holy crap.
I think it's when rubber hits the road. Like, I feel like there's a lot of moms who you'll see like their kid becomes trans identifying, and they're like, what? Like, and they were left their whole life, and all of a sudden they're like, this is different. Like, I support gay rights, but like, why is my 12-year-old being taught that gender is a construct, and that if you're not uncomfortable in your body, you're an opposite sex? And so I think for some people it's like, when like life hits you in the face, and like I think that about that with some people who like, I don't understand. And it's like, because you were able to vote for these policies and like, it doesn't impact you, like higher gas prices. You're like, whatever, like, or you don't have a small business that's regulated out of business, or, we can think of a million things. And so I don't know. I think if it's not impacting you directly, and I think also the abortion stuff is a huge one that I think is just a one issue voter for people. And it comes back to them thinking that Republicans are evil because they don't support abortion, and they get really scared about it. And they're afraid of like, they have like Handmaid's Tale in their minds, that like America is going to become Handmaid's Tale.
Dude,
and like, you are Handmaid's Tale.
No, I'm anti-abortion. And like the only thing I think about is like, we need to have women in like looking like the Handmaid's Tale. They shouldn't even be allowed to talk. They shouldn't even have opinions. Obviously that's all I think about all day. So,
I know.
They're right.
Well, my whole take on that is like, I'm pro-choice because I am for less government in our lives. And ultimately, I think if you follow it to its logical conclusion. It's a lot of control over women. And I think that it should be just a reasonable cutoff. I think it should be like 16 weeks or something like that. And I get it. People would say that's a life, but I'm like, I don't care. Like, I prioritize the life of the woman. And if a woman wants to do that, that's her, it's her blood, it's her choice.
Do you think, let me ask you this. We don't need to debate it because we obviously,
I know, because abortion's so hard to debate, but
yeah, do you think that like murder is a little bit like government overreach, you know?
Okay, but this is like such a thing that all pro-life people do, because they go murder, but I'm talking about abortion. I'm not talking about murder of another human being. I'm speaking about abortion.
Oh no, which is
when the life is inside of your body and depends on you for life. So if you can come up with another example of that.
Well, I mean,
everybody always says, they go, "Oh, so you think you could kill a baby on the side of the street?" I'm like, no, I didn't say that.
No, I don't think that. Yeah. I mean, some of them do think that. Like in Minnesota, they are taking when the baby is born and it was a failed abortion, they will just kill the baby, which should be told. Everybody should agree that that's
listen. I think a elective abortion on a healthy baby. Like, I think someone said this. It's like, it's a sin. Like, I would say that it's a sin.
Yeah.
And I would never do it. But am I in a place where I'm going to then punish everyone who does make that decision, especially considering like our information system, our education system, and they are indoctrinating into believing that it isn't a life, that it is a clump of cells, and they're coming from that place. And so like, I think what we need to do is educate people.
I agree with you. I think people need to be educated. Absolutely. Because
all of a sudden, if one person's like, I thought it was a clump of cells, but now I'm spending time in jail. Like, do they think it's a life when they are doing the abortion? Because that's the intention.
This is where the big question comes in, though, because we know the science. We've known the science for a long, long time. I think
that the people who are getting the abortions don't think they're like, it's not.
I know they're being told by Planned Parenthood, by the public school system, that it's a clump of cells and it's all of that nonsense. And they've been told that from the day that they were born. And I understand that that's evil. On the other hand, the science has been there for forever. I mean, literally from the beginning of time, we've known, but we have the actual scientific studies, which I always get frustrated with. Why do we need scientific studies for things that are just obvious? Anyways, so we know that that's a human being from conception. There's no scientific argumentation around that. That's a human being from conception. And so do we make laws on the basis of how people feel about a particular issue or what the public perception of a particular issue is? Or do you make laws on the basis of what the facts around a particular issue are? And I think that's where the divide would come between you and I. Because you're saying we should make the law on the basis of what people think about it. And I would say to you, if we do that, people are going to continue to think the wrong thing about it. And then that's going to continue to cause more problems. We're going to have, we murder. I mean, again, murder. I use that language because I think that's what it is. 3,000 babies a day in the United States. Mm-hmm. Every civilization in human history who did anywhere near that number, which they didn't because they didn't have the technology that we had, ceased to exist very quickly afterward. Carthage, Rome, you have all of these. So you have I think
that the ability to terminate a pregnancy is something that like women were doing with, their herbs. And like there was was the medicine woman who could do it. And I think it was happening on a subtle, like sort of women's spaces level where like a young girl gets pregnant and they're going, okay, we're going to take care of this because you're young, or maybe it was a rape or whatever. Like, I think abortion has always existed throughout history.
Totally.
The scale that it's happening now is outsized, like you're saying. But again, it's like the alternative is to be punishing people who I think it's almost like they don't know what they don't know because of the culture that they've grown up in.
And again, I
don't want to punish anyone because I just think that like it's just opening up a can of worms. But I think it goes back to educating people. Like I feel like. Because again, like you have like the fact that we suppress the stories of like abortion regret or whatever, like, I think it's just like, but if you really followed it to its conclusion, I don't want to live in a world where our government is all of a sudden getting even more involved in women's lives. And it's almost like a subtle thing between a person and their doctor at a certain point in pregnancy. And I don't really want to know about it. I'm not going to do it, and we should discourage it.
Women have the least restrictions right now than they've ever had. And in fact, women are able to just destroy their husbands' lives if they want to, and take their children away from their families at higher rates than we've ever seen before. Yeah. And I think you'd probably agree with me on that women are able to do a lot more now than obviously like they couldn't vote before and stuff. So there's like that. But
you're a manipulative woman who takes advantage of the system.
Which is a lot of women. actually. There's a lot of women who are very manipulative
Yeah.
and take advantage. Actually, after Trump won, there was an uptick in divorce just because I think women believed this sort of ideology that Trump won, all of my rights are going to be taken away from me. I need to
People
get
are
out of the
crazy.
oppressive patriarchy quickly. I think the
People are
abortion.
crazy.
Yeah. No, I know people are insane. They've
And
lost their
also,
mind.
I
And I
will say
agree with
one thing, having been pregnant twice, is like,
yes.
I've definitely always felt like, okay, before my baby was like 25-ish weeks, which now we know
Yeah.
is like when they're viable outside the womb. I always thought, like, if I get an accident, please save me, like, prioritize me,
Mm.
because like, I have a husband, like I have a partner, like I have a life, and like I get that this baby's growing inside of me, but like, or I think I have kids at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the like putting the baby of the life of the baby on par with the woman's, and like I know this doesn't really happen, but if there was any situation where like take the baby's life or protect the mother's life, like we've got to protect the mother's life always. And I feel like the abortion conversation taken to its most extreme muddies the water there, and that I think is what women are really scared about. Is
There
like,
was
wait a minute.
there was a baby just recently that was born at I think 18 weeks that survived.
Jeez.
That
Wow.
they just did. So,
But like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, as a woman, if you're
I
going into the
know.
doctor, like you
Yeah,
want to be like, I'm the priority, and like, yes, the baby I'm growing is also important. However, like, please focus on me first. Triage this. I'm the one with the family and the other kids at home, and this baby also would need a mother to be alive.
Look, we
like,
can. I totally am fine with debating the particular instances. 93% of abortions happen after 16, I think 16 or 20 weeks. And so one of the things that I was frustrated with.
You're saying 93% happen after 16 weeks?
I think it's after 16 or after 20 weeks. I can't remember which one.
Seriously?
Yeah, look it up. I'm almost, because I was frustrated in the 2024 primaries, Republican primaries, that all of the candidates were like, we're going to do a 16-week ban or like a 20-week ban. I can't remember what it was. And you look up the numbers, it's like 93% of the abortions actually happen. Or sorry, I'm sorry.
So they happened before.
I flipped that. That's on me. Sorry.
Yeah.
So they happened before that. So I was frustrated because it's like, you're not really
limiting abortion.
You're not limiting abortion at all. You're just giving you're giving lip service to the Republicans who believe in this, or to the conservatives who believe that abortion is murder and it's wrong. I also just don't think that logically those arguments really.
But I think the thing is, it's like we live in a fallen society then, because I feel like,
I agree with that. Yeah, I know we do.
I'm saying, but we got to make rules that work in our society, because ultimately, like, we should be working toward having like educating people where like when you become pregnant or the act of having sex, like there's repercussions,
a higher chance of having babies.
Yeah, and like, or being like understanding with people like, oh, when I have sex, this is a consequence. Like, I just feel like, but again, like, no, the world is so diverse of so many different people, of so many experiences. I'm like, am I going to really litigate trying to make it perfect? It just like, for me, it comes down to like a top down government intervention thing that like, then all of a sudden you have the abortion police. They're like, when was your last period? Like,
well, what you would have though is you would have like, I mean, if you look at the numbers, 65 million more human beings that lived on the earth. And so since 1960, which
but not necessarily living well or with parents who want to take care of them.
But that's like the liberal fallacy of now we're going to create alternate realities in which we understand the future of all of these children. I'll take people have come out of the dirt. That's why America's amazing. They can can survive. I mean, that's just America. The world statistics are like 300 million or something like that. But in America, like I will take, a LeBron James, who I think is like I can't stand LeBron James. I think he's a garbage basketball player too. But anyways, the story, Akron, Ohio, who's going to go anywhere from Akron, Ohio, becomes an NBA superstar. He's like a billionaire now. So I will take the chance every time because I'm an American. And I think that these children should have a chance. And I think that we should hold adults accountable for the promiscuity. If you're going around having sex all the time, I'm sorry. I think that that's like one of the logical, basic, biological realities of the world is that when you have sex, there's a high chance that a baby is going to come. And when we just continue to say to women and to men, which I think men are taking advantage of this all the time and knocking up whoever they want to knock up and feeling like they don't have any responsibility to it, which is disgusting behavior and shouldn't be happening. When you start telling people that they can do that and there's not any consequences and that what you can do is you can just kill the baby, I just think that that's a sign of an incredibly immoral society. And I don't think
I guess my thing is like, before we litigate it, I would like, let's work on our culture then. Like, I don't think a law is the thing.
Work on the culture. Well, that's the question though. Do you think that the laws can sort of, I don't know if you're familiar
I
with
don't think that they work in any other situation, right? Like we look at like overregulation or anything. It's like, then let's work on the culture. Let's work on like, it just goes against my, like, I hear you, like, but I also just feel
we
like
regulate
to live in the
murder.
reality where we actually were like litigating against abortion would be a worse reality than what I think we live in now. So, I mean,
They
but
work
like,
when they're in accordance with nature. Like we regulate murder, and we have relatively low murder rates for history and around the world, in competent places. Let's just keep like
yeah,
Chicago and New York out of it. But we have relatively low murder rates because the regulation is in alignment with nature. And when you regulate and when you align your political regime with what's already true and real, like your argument with the facts, with reality, it ends up actually working. It's when you start to try to contradict the facts that people stop being able to, that things start to be weird and things stop working.
yeah,
Like the transgender thing. Like I think we should probably get rid of that altogether because it's not good for people to cut themselves up and
yeah.
period. And so I don't know if what you would think about that. But
Yeah, it's a
like
tough one. I kind
when
of
you
go
go
to
against
like
nature,
adult,
yeah,
like you say, adults let them choose. I mean, I feel
sure.
like the abortion debate is so interesting. Like, I feel
Mhm.
like people could talk about it all day,
I know.
but
I agree.
I feel like we kind of got off basis there.
Yeah, we did. We did. Yeah, that's
I could
fine.
say
Yeah.
more about it, but I'm mindful of
Yeah.
like the clock. I don't know if you want to keep
Yes.
talking about
No,
it.
you're good. You're good. Yeah, we don't need to sit. We don't need to sit on that forever. I just think that's an interesting one. And
No, I
I
think
like
it's
I.
so interesting.
It's a conservative Christian podcast. I never talk to people who are pro-choice in any way, shape, or form. And so it's bantering back and forth is fun.
I'll come back on. We'll just do abortion the whole time.
We can. That would be great because I think that there's a lot to talk about there, and I do think that if there's any chance for any legislation to change on that, it's probably now because the political landscape is so strange, and like things are changing all the time, and things that we didn't think were possible. I mean, Roe v. Wade got overturned.
Yeah,
People
that
didn't
was
think
crazy.
that was possible, and it happened. Which I was happy about, but a lot of people were not happy about it. So I think that things are changing, and I think that we're in the midst of a regime change, sort of a political regime change, and we don't really know what's going to come out on the other end of it, which is also going to be interesting. And that's kind of why I'm asking, what's the future?
Well,
How can we
Mom
get
Donnie
people
wants free abortions on demand.
So do you think that's wrong? Do you think that that's
I think that's
insane?
completely wrong. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I agree.
But I'm more in line with like Europe. I just think it should be, I think I'm like aligned with Trump too. He's like, I think it should be
Yeah.
possible, but it should be rare. I think even like the 90s Clintons were like, they're like, it should be
Safe, rare, and
rare. Yeah. Whatever they said, whatever their phrase was, like,
safe, rare,
I don't, yeah, I mean, I think I've made my point, but it's ultimately
yeah.
like, I don't want to outlaw it completely because I think that the law of unintended consequences would lead to worse outcomes. I think it
Yes.
should be rare. I think we should educate people to the impacts of it, amplify the stories of people who feel abortion regret. Like, I feel like that's suppressed. Like, give people all the
Yeah. Like
information, equip them,
60% of women.
support pregnant moms who choose life, right? Like, before we litigate anything, I would love to make the system healthier because I think as it is now, if we just outlawed it, I think it would be really bad. But maybe ultimately in my lifetime and how the culture changes, who knows? Maybe we'll have a religious revival here and people will want it to be banned because they think it's so wrong. But I don't think it works in the environment we have now.
Well, we'll debate it sometime because I think it's interesting. You did, and what some of the things. So one thing that when we were emailing, you mentioned you'll talk to your parents about some of the things that you say, and they're just like, yeah, this makes sense because like the older folks and even older liberals or older Democrats even are sort of just like they have the old school Democrat mentality, which is much closer to the modern Republican mentality. And so there's a chasm between the Gen Z and millennials, the way that we've been talking about, and the Gen X and boomers, as far as like, it almost feels like a worldview chasm. And so when I've tried to explain to older people what's actually happening in the younger generation, there's this sort of like, is that really happening? I don't think that that's happening. They'll get older and they'll change. Well, it's like, millennials are in their 30s, early 40s, and some of them are just dead set on it.
Well, when I posted my post, I had like people in my life like freaking out at me, mad at me, like snapping at me, at my generation.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, I read your piece. I don't see what was the big deal. They're like, this seems, and they're like, they hate Trump, voted for Kamala.
They hate Trump.
They hate Trump.
But they were Reagan folks.
They were Reagan Republicans, but then like a lot of people in my area like hate Trump. Like it's like the New England, like they think Trump is like a scam artist. They like don't like they're like Bush Republican. It's just weird. They like everyone in my area used to be conservative, like Fairfield County of Connecticut. It's like a wealthy
Really?
area.
Yeah.
Was red until like I think they voted for McCain, but like then they flipped because they don't like Trump, and like he's kind of seen as like a upstart Atlantic City like schmuck, and so they're like we don't, and he's not like coiffed and waspy, so they're like ew. Like anyway,
that is true. That's interesting. His rhetoric, a lot of it has to do with
it's
the
more
rhetoric.
populist, yeah.
Wow.
So like my area used to be like old school Republicans, when like the old like Ray Romney like Republicans.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so my parents, they don't like Trump, but they like read my stuff and they're like, everything you're saying to me makes complete sense. Like you're not, nothing is like triggering me. Like, how dare you? Like, so it's just interesting. But then my generation of people that I know, they're like, what the fuck? And you're like, okay, this is different. Like,
you're right.
So.
Yeah. So what is that difference? Like, what is the younger people are, how do you communicate this thing to your parents, or have you tried, or is it just never clicked?
My parents also just like, my parents just love me and support me. So they're like, I'm just happy that you're speaking your truth, and that like overrides my politics, I feel like.
Yeah.
But for people who are my generation, it's like so funny because like we just have different sets of facts.
Yeah.
So they just like kind of just still live in this liberal bubble, and like, but then in the end of a conversation, they'll go, ultimately, I just want to pay less taxes. And you're like, okay, well, that makes no sense.
Right.
And, you bring up stuff and they're like, whatever, like you free press freak. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't know what to tell. I think the divide, actually, I think this is a good point, is like, it's independent media consumption versus if you still consume mainstream. And like, even for me, that was a huge transition. Listening to podcasts. I used to not even think Joe Rogan was like palatable back when I was at Now This. And so, and then I have cousins now, I have family members who were very left growing up like me, made the same switch as me. And it's because they listen to Breaking Points, or they listen to Megyn Kelly, Ben Shapiro, and they've totally gone, maybe not willing to vote for Trump. Some of them have, some of them have not, but they totally left the left, because once you break out of the into independent media, there's no way the house of cards falls.
Yeah, well, one of the questions that I've always wondered is, when does the independent media become the mainstream media? Because as far as I think it is too. I mean, I don't know anyone except for people who are like 150 years old who are diehard Fox News people anymore. I know Fox a lot
News,
of
I think, is actually still big.
It is big, but it's like Tucker left them and they lost a bunch of viewership. You've got Laura Ingraham, who like, I don't know, I can't stand listening to her. And then Sean Hannity, who's just like a good old boy. He's like friends with Gavin Newsom. If everything feels kind of yucky and gross in there.
Yeah.
And like, you could go to Candace Owens, who I think is the dumbest person in media, full stop. But she gets millions and millions of views. And at some point, like, people will say the mainstream, New York Times. I don't know anybody who reads the New York Times regularly. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm off on that, or I'm just not talking to the right people.
I know a lot of people.
Do you really? Okay. So maybe they're still big. Yeah. I don't know. But do you think that do you think that they're bigger than the Free Press or the Daily Wire, those sorts of places?
I feel like we get a lot. No, I mean, I think the conservative ecosystem has absolutely crushed it.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, the Daily Wire, all those places they're massive, crazy good. But yeah, I think that's why people look at me like on my social media, who like know me in real life, and they're like, what has happened to you? Because they're just like, I'm the first person that's like coming across their like newsfeed that's thinking a little bit differently. And they're like, huh? Like, I don't get it. And so I think there's more to be done. I feel like, I don't know, the mindless sort of Kamala voter who didn't really like look into things, but just was like, Trump is evil. Like, that's a lot of people.
Yeah. Who are those guys that they paid? Those like young influencer. There's like a group of like
Harry
young
Sisson?
white guys. Oh, yeah. Like, what was that? That was one of the worst attempts I've ever seen at trying to like connect with the younger generation. That guy's weird. I just think he's kind of weird.
And then he had like a huge scandal because he was like texting with like so many girls, like doing like like he was stringing along like a million girls. Wait, I also like love this conversation, but I have to go soon. We went over a little bit.
Sorry. Yeah.
No,
I'll do last like 2-second question. Okay. I have mostly conservative people listening to this.
I didn't alienate them.
Yeah, it's fine. It's the most explicit podcast, most cuss words used, which is all good. Sometimes conservatives need to hear some of that just to get themselves out of their little bubble. Anyways, any like encouragement, or I guess you went from the left to the right, and is there any way in which conservatives can talk about this with people on the left about issues that you think maybe there's a better way we talk about this, or a better way that we can convince people from the left to kind of to switch sides the way that you did? Any encouragement on that end?
So I think the one thing that kind of stuck out to me when I was very left was someone who was conservative saying to me, but has the government ever run anything really well? What do they run well right now?
Good twitch. Yeah.
And why would you want to give more money to a system that doesn't work well? And that was sort of like, oh, that's actually very logical. So when you hear people pushing socialism, you go, but like the government doesn't run things well now. What makes you think it will all of a sudden? So I don't know. That's sort of like not political, just sort of offering up just a simple question. And I mean, all the conservatives in my life were so gracious toward me when I was very left. And of course now they are obsessed with me. They're like, yes, like you've come around.
Right.
Which is hilarious. But
that's great.
I don't know. That's what I would say. Just ask some well-pointed questions and keep your voice calm.
Right. Yeah. Don't get angry. Got it.
Yeah.
Lucy, thanks for doing this podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. So much fun.